ready for a deep dive. We're jumping into symbols, sex, and the stars in popular beliefs.
Oh, this one. Buckle up. Busenbark, he makes some bold claims.
You sent it over, so I'm ready for some serious aha moments. We're talking ancient beliefs, symbols, all that good stuff. How does this stuff still affect us today?
That's just it,
Yeah.
right? It's like you see a tree and you think, oh, a tree. But Busenbark is saying ancient cultures, they saw symbols everywhere. Like a tree. That wasn't just a tree. It was like life, fertility.
Right, like deeper meaning.
Exactly. He even says some cultures saw them as like homes for spirits. Or, okay, think about a hill. Like it's a natural hill. You see that, you think, okay, a hill.
Right, not exactly mind-blowing.
But they saw, like the breast of Mother Earth, it's like they saw the divine in everything. And then, of course, they'd build their temples on those hills.
Temples on hills makes sense. And it's funny, like, we still talk about Mother Nature, right? Like, that connection is still there.
Totally. And that leads us to one of their biggest fascinations, the moon.
The moon, now that's interesting. You'd think it would be the sun, right? Big ball of fire in the sky?
You'd think so, but Busenbark, he says moon worship was huge, even before sun worship.
Why the moon? Was it just easier to look at?
Well, it's more than that. The moon, it's got these cycles, right? Like clockwork, waxing, waning. And for ancient cultures, that was everything. That was how they tracked time, figured out when to plant, when to harvest.
It's true. Imagine if we didn't have calendars. Knowing the moon's phases would be huge.
Exactly. Busenbark, he talks about how the moon, it influenced everything, from like when to wean children to the best time to get a haircut. Even today, there are cultures where it's bad luck to point at the moon.
I've heard that. And not just in one place, right?
Right. We're talking England to East Lancashire. It's like it's in our collective memory.
Wild. But okay, let's talk about the sun for a second, because that's where the myths, the legends, they really get going, right?
Oh, yeah. The sun's journey, it became this epic story. Every morning, the sun god, he's battling these serpents, or he's escaping from the underworld only to be, like, reborn again at dawn.
It's like their way of explaining the world, right?
Exactly. And from these stories, we get these heroic archetypes. Busenbark even compares them to, like, Hercules.
Okay, I can see that.
Or Samson. Strong, resilient, battling against the odds.
Wait, Samson? As in, the lead loses his strength when his hair is cut, Samson?
Think about it. His 7 locks of hair. The 7 days of the waxing moon where it gets stronger. Cut his hair. And it's like the waning moon, right? Losing power.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. Okay, but here's where I really get interested, how all this ties into, the religions we know today.
Right. This is where Busenbark makes some pretty big connections. He talks about the divine triad.
The Father, Son, Holy Spirit kind of thing.
Yeah, like that. But he's saying this idea, it pops up everywhere. We're talking Babylonian myths, Egyptian mythology.
So this 3-part deity, it's not just a Christian thing.
Exactly. And it gets even weirder, right? Because it wasn't always 3 separate beings.
Yeah.
Take the Babylonian god, Anu. His name, it also means the number 60. But in the triad, it's 600. It's like they're saying it's all the same force, just different aspects.
That's kind of trippy when you think about it. But it's amazing, right? Like they were wrestling with the same big questions back then.
Absolutely. And here's where things get really interesting.
Let's have it.
The connections to the Bible itself.
Oh boy, here we go.
Busenbark, he draws these direct lines between Babylonian, Egyptian mythology, and, well, Jewish and Christian traditions.
And that's where things get controversial.
Yeah.
Because not everyone agrees with this.
Exactly. So it's important to remember we're just presenting what Busenbark's saying.
Right. Think for yourselves, folks. So give us an example. What are some of the connections Busenbark is making?
Okay, so there's this Babylonian myth, Ishtar. She goes to the underworld to rescue her lover, Thamos. Sound familiar?
It's like Orpheus and Eurydice and Persephone. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Busenbark's saying, what if this myth, what if it influenced the story of Jesus?
Whoa, that's a big jump.
Right. But he keeps going. He points to the epic of creation, this Babylonian text. And, well, it's about creation. And there are these, like, really interesting similarities to Genesis and the Bible.
Okay, I'm listening. So we've got these parallels. What's Busenbark's takeaway from all this?
Well, he proposes this idea. He says during their exile in Babylon, the Israelites, they would have been exposed to these myths, right? And those stories, maybe they influenced how they saw, like, God, creation, all of it.
So their time in Babylon, it wasn't just like a historical footnote. It actually might have shaped their beliefs.
That's what Busenbark's suggesting. He even says some of the contradictions in the Bible, like having good and bad spirits, could be because they were trying to, like, blend all these different beliefs together.
It really is amazing when you think about it. Like, these ancient stories, they still have the power to, make us question things.
And that's what Busenbark's really good at. He gets you thinking. He doesn't just tell you what to believe. And he dives into some really specific examples, too.
Okay, so hit me with your best shot. What else does Busenbark unpack?
Remember that virgin goddess thing we were talking about?
Yeah, Ishtar. Powerful goddess, but also a virgin. How does that even work?
Right. So Busenbark, he says this wasn't just a Babylonian thing. You see it with Isis in Egypt, too. And maybe, just maybe, the word virgin, it meant something different back then. Well, maybe it wasn't about being, physically untouched. It could have been more about being unmarried, independent, especially for powerful women.
So a virgin goddess, she wasn't defined by, like, her relationship status, more about being this strong, independent force.
Exactly. And it just shows you these ancient beliefs, they're complicated.
Yeah.
And we're still trying to figure them out.
It's like solving a puzzle, right? And speaking of puzzles, Busenbark, he digs into another really intriguing detail, the number 3.
Ah, yes. The power of 3.
We talked about it with the triad thing, but it goes deeper than that, right?
Oh, yeah, way deeper. He's talking about, like, ancient rituals, symbolism. The number 3, it's everywhere.
Okay, give me an example. Where else does it show up?
Okay, picture sacred space, right? A temple, a holy site.
Yeah.
Often they'd have 3 distinct sections, like they were mirroring the 3 realms, heaven, earth, underworld.
Whoa. It's like this blueprint for, like, the cosmos built right into their architecture.
Right. And get this, Busenbark even brings up secret societies.
Wait, what do secret societies have to do with the number 3?
Well, think about it. 3-fold repetition in prayers, 3 knocks to enter a lodge. He's not saying it's a direct link, but...
But it makes you wonder.
Exactly. Like, maybe, just maybe, some of those ancient practices, they influence those later groups.
It's like those ancient beliefs, they're still echoing through time. We might not even realize how they're affecting us. Something I never thought I'd say. Busenbark made me appreciate astrology.
Astrology, the zodiac, horoscopes, all that.
I know. But Busenbark makes this point. He's like, okay, astrology might not be a science.
That's putting it lightly.
But he says those early astrologers, they were obsessed with the stars, like really obsessed.
Okay, I'll give him that.
They were the ones tracking their movements, mapping the constellations.
So they were laying the groundwork for astronomy.
Exactly. Even though they were like trying to predict the future, all that data, it was useful. It gave later astronomers, the real scientists, something to build on.
Interesting. It's like all those accidental discoveries that changed the world.
Right. And speaking of discoveries, Busenbark, he digs into this whole other thing. It's like a historical mystery. He calls it the case of the missing scriptures.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So during the Babylonian exile, the Jewish scriptures, they disappear.
Disappear? What, like, poof, they're gone.
Gone. Like, the historical record, it's blank. Even the Bible, it doesn't say what happened to them during that time.
So we have no idea what happened.
Well, Busenbark, he says some experts think they were destroyed, others they think maybe they were hidden. We just don't know.
That is wild. A huge part of history just gone. So what does Busenbark make of all this?
He doesn't give a definitive answer, but he uses it to show how, like, fragile knowledge can be. Think about it. These texts, for some people, they're the foundation of their faith. And they could have been lost forever.
It makes you think, what else have we lost over time? What other stories, other pieces of history are just gone?
Right. It's a little unsettling. And speaking of history's mysteries, Busenbark also brings up this group, the Essenes. Ever heard of them?
The Essenes? Vaguely, they were some kind of
Jerusalem
sect, right?
Yeah, they lived in these secluded communities right before, like when Christianity was getting started. And Busenbark, he suggests they might have had a bigger impact than we realize.
On Christianity, how so?
Well, think about it. The Essenes, they practiced baptism. They emphasized community. They even had this idea of a coming Messiah. Sound familiar?
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
So,
they shared some core beliefs.
And Busenbark, he even throws out this idea that John the Baptist, the guy who baptized Jesus, maybe he was an Essene.
Interesting. So we've got these different groups, maybe not directly connected, but their ideas are still intermingling, influencing each other.
It's like tracing the roots of a tree, right? You can't always see them, but they're all connected underground. It really makes you think about how these ancient cultures, they weren't so different from us,
Right. Like, they looked up at the stars and they wanted answers. They wanted to know where they fit in.
Exactly. And Busenbark, I like how he doesn't try to, like, force feed you a conclusion. He just lays it all out there. The connections, the paradoxes, the
He
mysteries.
wants you to keep thinking, like, have we lost touch with those primal beliefs? Or are they still there, buried underneath everything?
Good question. What do you think?
Me, honestly.
No.
I think Busenbark wants us to look at our own lives, our symbols, our stories, with fresh eyes. You know? Like, what if we're still connected to all that ancient wisdom without even realizing it?
I like that. So it's not just ancient history. It's about understanding ourselves.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, the more we understand those ancient beliefs, the more we understand our own search for meaning, you know?
It's like he's saying, hey, this stuff is still relevant. So if people finish this book and they want to keep digging, where do they go from here?
Pay attention. Seriously. Look around. The art you see, the stories you hear, even like everyday rituals. What symbols do you notice? What do they make you think of?
It's like he turned life into a scavenger hunt.
Right. And don't be afraid to question things. Busenbark, he's all about looking at things from different angles. Embrace the mystery.
It's about the questions, not always the answer.
Exactly. The world is full of amazing things. Just got to keep your eyes open.
Well said. And that wraps up our deep dive into Symbols, Sex, and the Stars in Popular Beliefs by Ernest Busenbark. We hope you enjoyed this little journey into the world of ancient beliefs. And hey, if you're feeling adventurous, pick up a copy of the book. You might be surprised by what you find.